And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. All this last week, I have been guest host on Art School Live, which is a Streamline, publishers of Plein Air Magazine, Streamline Publications, daily 15-minute art lesson. And I was the guest host this last week because the guy who normally hosts it, who is the publisher of Plein Air Magazine, named Eric Rhodes, was off at leading a travel group in Japan. But it was great. It was great fun. Hi, Facebook user. It was great fun. And the thing that I was particularly pleased with is that back at the beginning of the pandemic, the wonderful Betty Sue taught me about StreamYard, which is the platform that we use for this and for my reasonably fine art talks. And I introduced Eric Rhodes to StreamYard. And this week, using StreamYard as the platform for Art School Live, everyone behind the scenes was like, you know what you're doing. It was like, I do. And it's because thanks to you guys, we have learned how to use StreamYard. Our accomplishments in life are few, ladies and gentlemen, but we know how to use StreamYard. And thank you so much for watching. Okay, so let's see. Yes, Facebook user. Oh, different Facebook user. I bet that is Terry Hudson, Facebook user, saying that she is about to see my beloved. Is that Terry Hudson? Because Betty Sue, ladies and gentlemen, is in St. Louis, Missouri tonight on tour with James McMurtry. I never see her. Well, we had a wonderful time 2 weeks ago in Arizona. It was great. She took the time out of her schedule we spent a few days in Santa Fe and then Arizona, and then she's back on the road. And I just keep track of where she is each day, and she's a road warrior, ladies and gentlemen. She is a road warrior. Anyway, let's see. It is time to thank some people. Today's liberal snowplowing do-gooder fundraiser beneficiary is Rockingham Entertainment Development. Rockingham Entertainment Development is a nonprofit, a volunteer nonprofit 501c3 that I administer here in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And we help Raise the Roof Productions put on the Ray Masuko concert series, and we help the town of Rockingham more fully utilize the Opera House. We've helped them get the website developed. We've helped them work with a ticketing system called Spectrix that is kind of like working with a DOS computer, but it's very powerful, a very powerful DOS computer. And one of the things that we're going to do this year is donate a sound system to the Opera House. So monitors, audience speakers, microphones, cables, all that stuff, so that the Opera House will have a functional, sufficient sound system for speakers, for singer-songwriter sort of events, for conferences, for stuff like that. The system that is there now is a little underpowered for any of that. So it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing for the town. And I thank all of you who helped contribute tonight. We raised, thanks to Gary Pierce coming in right at the end, we're at about $300 raised, which is terrific. It's about a $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000 project. So any little bit makes a significant difference. Anyway, so we've got a few people to thank. Paul Gustafson says the path from StreamYard to Junkyard must be a short one. He's got a frozen picture in Minnesota. That's because you're in Minnesota. Everything's frozen in Minnesota, Paul Gustafson. I think everybody else can see me just fine, even those up there in Manitoba. Anyway, it's great to have you all here. I've blathered on long enough. We have a few people to thank. Thank you to our good friend out there in Omaha, Nebraska, Mr. John Wilhelm. In St. Louis, Missouri, about to see my beloved Terry Hudson. Oh, excellent artist, excellent human being. One of the wind beneath our wings, Ms. Catherine Fisher. We have Nani Moose to thank. Thank you, Nani Moose. Mr. Jim Frisk up there in St. Albans, Vermont. He and I are fellow fans of Amtrak's Vermonter. Today, Amtrak's Vermonter. Amtrak, run by a bunch of ex-airline hacks, is getting less and less reliable because you know how airlines are. Railroads used to pride themselves on maybe they were slow, but they would get you there. Today, they had some sort of engine problem on the southbound Vermonter, and they left St. Albans and just said, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop anywhere between St. Albans and Springfield, Massachusetts. And we're not going to provide any alternative transportation. So if you're going to take the train from, say, White River Junction or Bellows Falls or wherever south today, you're out of luck. You got to wave at it as it went past. But anyway, I'm going to send a nice note to the Department of Transportation in Vermont that sponsors the Vermonter and just ask them, is that really kosher? You would think they would either charter a bus because they no alternative transportation was provided, no bus, or Genesee in Wyoming that owns the old Central Vermont now. I'm sure they've got a freight locomotive that might be a few hours late, but if you were a patron today, you had to wait till tomorrow. Anyway, enough complaining about that. I was talking about Mr. Jim Frisk up there in St. Albans, Vermont, who probably shares my righteous indignation. Mr. Jim Frisk, thank you. Mr. Dan Tappan, thank you. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he sent me a link, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pittsburgh Pirates radio stations. I love listening to baseball when I'm working on a painting. I just like the sound of it. But I really can't stand the Red Sox anymore. I mean, now that they're like, you know, they think of themselves as this national team. I liked the Red Sox when they lost every year. I know they're back to kind of losing every year, but that winning bit just put me off my feed. I want a team that has no hope whatsoever of getting anywhere near the playoffs or interleague play. So I'm going to start listening to the Pittsburgh Pirates, along with my very, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wee little dog, Ginger, and his wonderful wife, Elise. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Anyway, happy Easter, everybody. Happy Easter. For those who I don't celebrate, you know, I'm not a Bible thumper, but I do love the phrase, he is risen. Happy Easter, everybody. On the other side of things, we're going to talk about dozing now. Mr. Robert Benchley. Mr. Robert Benchley from the Treasurer's Report and other aspects of community singing. Sporting life in America. Dozing. I see that my very tall cousin has said, the undefeated Pittsburgh Pirates. Just you wait, very tall cousin. Just you wait. Sporting life in America. Dozing. We Americans are a hardy race, and hardy races need a lot of sleep. Sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care, as Shakespeare called it. And except for the fact that it really doesn't mean much, it's a pretty good simile. I often think of it myself just as I am dropping off into a light doze. Sleep that sleeves up the raveled care of knit that sleeps up the shaveled knee of trailing off into a low whistle. One of the most charming manifestations of sleep, which we as a nation indulge in as a pastime, is the doze. By the doze, I mean those little snatches of sleep which are caught now and then during the day, usually with the collar on and choking slightly, with the head inclined coyly to one side, during which there's a semi-conscious attempt to appear as if we were really awake. It is in this department of sleep that we are really at our best. Of course, there is one form of doze which, to the casual observer or tourist, gives the appearance of legitimate sleep. This is the short doze, or the quickie, which is taken just after the main awakening in the morning. The alarm rings, or the Lord High Chamberlain taps us on the shoulder. In the absence of a chamberlain, a relative will do. And right here, I'd like to offer for examination that type of sadistic relative who takes actual delight in awakening people. They hover about with ghoulish anticipation until the minute arrives when they may legitimately begin their dirty work. And then, leering unpleasantly, they shake the sleeper roughly with a, "Come on, come, time to get up," and wait right there until you're actually out on the cold floor in one's bare feet. There is something radically wrong with such people, and the sooner they are exposed as pathological cases, the better it will be for the world. I'm sorry, I did not mean to be nasty about it. But at any rate, we are awakened and we look at the clock. There are 5 minutes before it is absolutely necessary to get out of bed. If we leave shaving off until night, there might even be 15 minutes. If we leave dressing until we get to the office, instead snatching our clothes from the chair and carrying them downtown in our arm, there might even be a half an hour. A half an hour more for a good, health-giving nap. Who knows? Perhaps those few minutes of extra sleep might make us just 10 times as efficient during the day. That is what we must think of: efficiency. We must sacrifice our petty opinions on the matter and instead think of the rest of the day and our efficiency. There is no doubt that 15 minutes more sleep would do wonders for us, no matter how little we really want to take it. By the time we have finished this line of argument, we are pretty fairly cold out again, but not so cold that we are not conscious of anyone entering the room. We feel that they are going to say, "Come, don't go back to sleep again." And we forestall this warning with a brisk, I know, I'm just thinking." This is said with one eye partially open and one tiny corner of the brain functioning. The rest of our powers add up to a total loss. It is one of nature's wonders how a person can carry on an argument with someone who is standing beside their bed and still be asleep to all intents and purposes. Now, it's not a very good argument, perhaps, and one in which many important words are missing or indistinct, but it is nevertheless still an argument. It is an argument, however, which seldom wins, the state of justice in the world being what it is today. Dozing before arising really does not come within the range of this treatise, however. What we are concerned with are those little lapses when we are fully dressed, when we fondly believe that no one notices. Riding on a train, for example. There's the short distance doze in the day coach, probably the most humiliating form of train sleeping. In this, the elbow is rested on the windowsill and the head is placed in the hand in an attitude of thought. The glass feels very cool on the forehead, and we rest it there more to cool off than anything else. The next thing we know, the forehead, carrying the entire head with it, has slid down the length of the slippery pane, and we have received a rather nasty bang against the woodwork. They should not keep their glass so slippery. A person is likely to get badly hurt that way. However, back again goes the forehead against the pane in its original position, with the hand now serving more or less as a buffer, until another skid occurs, this time resulting in an angry determination to give the whole thing up entirely and to sit up straight in the seat. Some dozers will take 4 or 5 slides without whimpering, going back each time for more with apparently undiminished confidence in their ability to see the thing through. It is a game that you cannot beat, however, and the sooner you sit up straight in your seat, the sooner you will stop banging your head. Dozing in he says Pullman chair. What he's referring to is the old club cars, parlor cars, individual seats. There were individual swivel seats in a row on each side in a railroad car. So, dozing in a Pullman chair is not as dangerous, as one does not have the risk of the sliding glass to cope with, but it is even less lovely in its appearance. Here, the head is allowed to sink back against the antimacassar just for a minute to see if the headrest is really as comfortable as it seems. It is then but the work of a minute for the mouth to open slightly and the head to tip roguishly to the right. And there you are, as pretty a picture as one would ever care to see. You are very lucky if, when you come to and look around, you do not find your neighbors smiling indulgently at some little vagary of breathing or eccentricity of facial expression which you have been permitting yourself. The game in all this public dozing is to act, on awakening, as if you had known all along what you were doing. If your neighbors are smiling, you should smile back, as if to say, I fooled you that time, didn't I? You thought I was asleep. If they're not quite so rude as to smile, but look quickly back at their reading on seeing your eyes open, you should assume a brisk, business-like expression, indicating that you have been thinking out some weighty business problem with your eyes closed. And now that you have at last come to a solution, it is snap, snap, back to work for you. If, after a furtive look around, you discover that no one has caught you at it, then it will do no harm to give it another try. This time until your collar chokes you. Until your collar chokes you into awakening with a strangled gasp. The collar, however, is not always an impediment to public dozing. In the theater, for example, a good stiff collar and shirt bosom have been known to hold the sleeper in an upright position, which otherwise he might have plunged forward and banged his head on the back of the seat in front. In my professional capacity as a play reviewer, I have had occasion to experiment in the various ways of sitting up straight and still snatching a few winks of health-giving sleep. I have found that by far the safest is to keep one's heavy overcoat on, especially if it is made of some good, substantial material which will hold a sagging torso erect. Within its folds. With a good overcoat, reinforced by a stiff dress shirt and a high collar, one might even go beyond the dozing stage and sink into a deep, refreshing slumber, and still not be made conspicuous by continual lurchings and plungings. Of course, if you're an uneasy sleeper and given to thrashing about, you'll find that even a heavy overcoat will let you down every once in a while. But for the average person who holds approximately the same position after they've gone to sleep, I don't think that this method can really go wrong. Its only drawback is that you are likely to get a little warm somewhere along the middle of the second act. If you don't want to wear your overcoat in the theater, the next best method is to fold the arms across the chest, brace the chin against the dress collar, exerting a slight upward pressure with the arms against the shirt front. This, however, can be used only for the lightest of dozes, as once unconsciousness is set in, the pressure relaxes and then over you go. Dozing in a play, however refreshing, makes it a bit difficult to follow the argument on the stage, as occasionally the nap drags itself out into a couple of minutes, and you awake to find a wholly fresh set of characters on the scene, or even a wholly fresh scene. This is confusing. It is therefore wise to have someone along with you who will alternate watches with you, so to speak, dozing when you are awake and keeping more or less alert while you are dozing. In this way, you can keep abreast of what has been happening. This, unfortunately, is impossible in personal conversations. If you slip off into a quick coma late some evening when your vis-a-vis is telling you about South America or a new solvent process, it is usually pretty difficult to pick up the thread where you dropped it. You may remember that the last words they were saying were, "which is situated at the mouth of the Amazon," but that isn't going to help you much if you come to just as they're asking you, "What would you say are?" As the personal conversation, let me reread that sentence. But that isn't going to help you much if you come to just as he is asking you, "What would you say are?" As in the personal conversation doze, the eyes very seldom completely close. It's more of a running back of the eyeballs than a closing of the lids. You may escape detection if you have a ready answer for the emergency. I find that, "Well, I don't know," said very slowly and deliberately, will fit almost any question that has been asked of you. Yes and no should never be offered, as they might make you sound even sillier than you probably look. If you say, "Well, I don't know," it will give you a chance to collect your wits, what few there are left, and may lead your questioner into answering the thing themselves. At any rate, it will serve as a stall. If there are other people present, some one of them is quite likely to come to your rescue and say something which will tip you off as the general subject under discussion. From then on, you'll just have to fight your own battle. I really can't help you. The whole problem is one which calls for a great deal of thought. If we can develop some way in which a person can doze and still keep from making a monkey of themselves, we have removed one of the big obstacles to human happiness in modern civilization. It goes without saying that we do not get enough sleep while we're in bed, so we have got to get a little now and then while we are at work or at play. If we can find some way to keep the head up straight, the mouth closed, and just enough of the brain working to answer questions, we have got the thing solved right there. I am working on it right now, as a matter of fact, but I do find it a little difficult to stay awake. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that is Benchley night for tonight. Now on Wednesday, we have the Reasonably Fine Art Talk. It'll be at 1:45 p.m. 1:45 p.m. on all these same outlets, also on the YouTube channel. And what I was thinking, I was thinking I would read a Nick Hornby story. Nick Hornby is a wonderful British writer, and he has a terrific, very funny, quite long story about a guard at a contemporary art installation. And I think it's one of the more interesting, I think it's a very good perspective on how to think about non-representational, conceptual, contemporary art. And it's funny. And that it is called Nipple Jesus. So I'm going to read that on Wednesday at 1:45 p.m., but you can watch it anytime on the old YouTubes. Anyway, until next time, next Sunday, we'll be back here with more Robert Benchley. You take good care, and thank you so much for joining us. It's a joy. Bye-bye.